Hi, I'm Rachel Wilson from the Kickass Midlife Method podcast, and this week I'm starting a new series on health behind the headlines. What are the truth behind the headlines that are hitting us that are affecting midlife women? Today I'm going to kick off with a news story around Jamie Oliver, who's really called out the 5 a day fruit and vegetable message. He's saying that actually the real health benefits of having fruit and vegetables really starts at 8 to 9 portions of, or even 11 portions actually a day. Um, and what is the truth behind that? Well, actually, it is true. Over 2 million people were surveyed. And whilst that found that 5 portions of fruit and veg lowered the risk of chronic disease such as heart disease and cancer, the greatest benefits were seen around 10 portions of fruit or veg daily. Another UK study found that people eating 7 or more portions had a 42% lower risk of death compared to those eating less than 1 portion. So, what I think is most interesting about this is like, where did this 5 a day campaign come from in the first place? I was a health editor for many years on UK national magazines, and I was coming across these kind of campaign headlines quite a lot. And it's interesting over that kind of 15 years and onward now, working within women's health and fitness, how much those guidelines have really come out as being slightly rubbish. So the guidelines were actually launched in the UK and Ireland 20 years ago. And the reality is, it wasn't meant to be a perfect target. It was a compromise between what experts thought that the public were willing to accept. So it was a balance between actually the nutritional evidence and what they thought people would actually actively do. So 20 years ago, maybe there wasn't quite as much availability of fruit and veg, but it just goes to show this is just one example of where campaign headlines, government guidelines don't actually, they're not actually that realistic or true. So, for instance, I wrote many years about exercise and it just being like, if you just used 1 or 2 kilo dumbbells in women's magazines, it was always about lift a bag of flour, lift a bottle of water. And it gave off this impression that that would be good for women and you would build muscle, it would keep you fit. When actually, most of us watching this hopefully know that is just not the case. You have to keep challenging the muscles to develop muscles and strength. So lifting a 1 kilo bag of flour and a bottle of water over and over again is going to do absolutely nothing for you. Likewise, the 5 a day campaign obviously is going to do something for you, but really we want to know the truth of what's going to have a better impact of our health. And we're looking at kind of 8 to 10 portions a day. Now, if you're watching this, you're thinking, how the hell can I eat 8 to 10 portions a day? Actually, it's really not that difficult. If you think about your morning breakfast, say for instance, if you're having overnight soaked oats, you don't actually have to soak them overnight. You can literally do it in the morning. With berries, you've got one there. You take 2 pieces of fruit to work, an apple and an orange. That's another 2, that's 3. Then you're having some kind of greenery in your lunch, so a couple there and some tomatoes, and then 3 kind of portions within whatever you make at night. And it's not actually that difficult. Now, for midlife women in particular, it's even more important because there's so much processed food around nowadays. It's really important to just keep thinking that every time you have your lunch and your dinner, you're thinking about kind of 2 handfuls, I always recommend, of vegetables of some kind, just to help your gut microbiome. So that there's so much evidence now about the health of your gut affecting everything from your cognitive function to your emotions and mood to obviously your health. And that all comes from having a good source of fiber, which obviously comes from vegetables, along with other things. So the headlines in this case, in terms of Jamie Oliver, is not just Jamie Oliver looking for headlines. Actually, it's true. So have a think about that when you're looking at your plate next week, over the week, your meals. what have you got on there in terms of vegetables? What are your snacks? Nowadays, so often it can be thinking about snacks as like protein bars or something like that, but really be thinking about your vegetables and your fruit. So the second headline is about stress, which so this is really relevant to midlife women, I think, about um, making sure that we can all get really, really stressed in midlife. Like a lot of the women I coach come to me at the very beginning and they are like in first gear at 70 miles an hour and find it very difficult to regulate their stress. Now, this study, let me get the details up. This study was about how the increasing body of evidence really shows that it's about how you frame stress and you can actually benefit from it. There's nothing we can do about stress. Our bodies and our minds are always going to be stressed. Stress comes in the form of exercise is stress. We're positively stressing the body to create positive effects. Stress comes from, say, you've got a new work project and your brain is stressed because it's trying to learn a new thing. That's a positive stress. Now, we can kind of see those things as positive, but in the general rush of life, sometimes that additional stress, any stress, becomes overwhelming and it can really affect your mental outlook, which then starts affecting kind of how you eat and how you move. So it has a huge impact. But if you reframe your attitude towards stress, your narrative around it, the research is showing that that can absolutely change it. So this study collected data from over 400 athletes. Now, these were elite athletes and recreational athletes. And they used questionnaires to measure the stress mindset and their mental health. They found that those people who saw stress as positive or enhancing, like as a positive challenge, it linked to a much better outlook on mental health, which meant more energy and fewer depressive symptoms. So I actually wrote a feature about this in the Daily Express many years ago, 15, 20 years ago, about how to reframe stress in a positive way. We can't do anything about stress, but we can reframe our attitudes and how we frame that narrative. Obviously, chronic stress, not a good thing because that can lead to chronic disease, but we're just talking about those things that we can reframe our response to. So, for example, rather than if you've got a work thing that's making you nervous, so similar, I run a lot, have lots of races, similar to how your anxiety or your nervousness around it can then drive anxiety. It can make you snappy. It can make you not very pleasant to be around or depressed. Instead of using that and thinking, I'm nervous or anxious about this, if you reframe it as I'm excited about this, these feelings I'm having are excitement, then it becomes a very different thing. So both headlines there. So how to reframe your stress response so that you have more control over the way you respond to stress will definitely have an impact, a positive impact on your mindset. And mindset is everything in terms of your health and longevity as you get older because it impacts how you approach exercise, whether you're going to do it or not, and also how you approach nutrition. So I'll leave you with that. So upping your vegetables and fruit day by day, and also really working on visualizing and reframing the way you respond to stress. So if you've liked this podcast, please comment, like, and share. That would really help me out. And look forward to seeing you on the next Truth Behind the Health headlines.